Welcome into the garage area. This is our Kansas recap show where we saw Cory Heim win the truck race and we saw Kyle Larson win the closest race in NASCAR history. And I feel like we said that once before this year, that we watched the closest finish in NASCAR history, at least one of them. Well, this is officially the closest race in NASCAR history. Just to talk about the truck race real quick, we really don't have a lot to cover on it. Cory Heim wins, as I said. He gets his second victory of the season, tying him with Christian Eckes with 2 points as well, or 2 wins as well. Heim led 79 laps in the event, and he ends up leading the points over Christian Eckes by seven points. And the trucks will be back in action at North Wilkesboro in 2 weeks. Okay, let's get to this Cup race. There was a rain delay to start. There was no competition caution, and there did seem to be a little bit of tire wear being a factor. The track did seem to take rubber fairly well in 3 different groups. We had a race that transitioned from day to night, most of it being in the day, but towards the end there it was tapering off into evening. Once again, we saw aerodynamics be a big factor in this race, which is unfortunate, but it was probably, I would say, one of the more entertaining races where aero dependency was also a thing. I felt like you had action in all 3 stages. Normally the first stage for sure, and most of the second stage are throwaways. And it just saw a lot of side-by-side cars trying to pass for the lead. The thing that I didn't like was a lot's going to be made about the side-by-side with Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson swapping that lead back and forth. But it was just because the guy in second would get a run and pass him. Yeah. And that was it. Like, that was... The faster car couldn't go by and stay by. Yeah. And it was all due to air being a factor.
I think really the track made up for the aero dependency that these cars have.
I agree.
I think the track put on a better product than what the cars normally would allow.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It seemed like Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, and Denny Hamlin all were fast in this event, especially to start with. I debated as I was making my picks for this week whether I thought it was going to be Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin, and I ultimately went with Denny Hamlin, and I really thought you were going to take one or the other, and you ended up going with Tyler Reddick. What was your thought process behind Reddick? Why did you think that he was going to be fast here?
Well, he's fast at similar tracks. So didn't he win here last year?
Yes, last fall he won.
Yeah, so that was kind of my thing. I figured, well, I consider him a JGR car pretty much, so... even Bubba Wallace had a win here with 23:11, so both those cars are fast here. So, that was just what I saw. I mean, it didn't come to fruition, but
Reddick, where did he end up finishing?
20th.
20th. He did end up leading 7 laps at some point during the day. I remembered him being up front, but I didn't remember really him being a factor.
I think there was like a little bit of a pit strategy that got him up there. When he was up there, he was fast, but it just, I think some of it is the aero dependency too. So.
Yeah, that's certainly a factor. It's kind of weird because certain cars can come through the field. Yeah. Other cars, if they're stuck in the back, in the mired in traffic, they can't go anywhere. And you saw that today to its fullest extent. I was not concerned, but I saw that Denny Hamlin started 14th. And Larson was obviously up front, starting 4th. I had a little bit of regret at the beginning of the race, thinking that, man, Larson's really fast. He's up there battling for the lead. He started up front. Denny had to start that far back. But Hamlin just kept climbing his way through the field, moving up to the lead eventually, and actually led, looks like 71 laps on the day. And it looks like that is the most laps led from Kansas. Kyle Larson led 63. Chris Beuscher was a surprise to me. He led 54 laps and wasn't really somebody that, even while he was up front and leading, and he won the second stage, he wasn't somebody that I went, I really think that Beuscher's got a shot today. Yeah. Did you feel that way? Like, even though he was up there, he had a chance to win the thing?
Not really. He seemed like he was one of those cars that once it got up front, he could run up there, But, I still thought... Well, Kyle Larson was still behind and fighting with him at the time. I still thought him and Denny were the better cars.
Yeah, I thought Hamlin and Larson were certainly the fastest 2 guys on the day. Hamlin won the first stage. Beuscher won the second. Hamlin and Larson, I think they could have spent more time up front, but they both had issues on pit road. Larson with that left front wheel, they had the lug nut that they backed off and then retightened again.
I think that's when Beuscher took the lead, was from that incident.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that very well could have been. I know that Larson was running up front and had that issue on pit road. Denny seemed to have an issue when he got into the stall. He was getting blocked. They had a couple slow stops. I'm not sure exactly what all the issues were that they faced on pit road, but every time he came in, he seemed to lose positions. And that certainly hurt him in trying to keep that 11 car up front. Really, the first two stages were pretty calm as far as, there were no cautions in the first two other than the stage breaks. But we did see a lot of action. And I don't want to be down on this race because for the next gen car, this was a good race. And you cannot take that away from it. I don't care what you say. I don't care who you are, whether you would agree with it or disagree with it. This is a bad race car. It's putting on a bad show week to week. I'm not going to go into the whole thing again as to why that is. But can you imagine how good this race would be with some actual tire wear, some real horsepower, and much less aero?
Yeah.
The biggest issue that I had out of this race, obviously we talked about the difficulty passing and maintaining the lead. That's a problem. But the issues that I had was how low these cars are to the ground, how thin those tire sidewalls are. Yeah. That when guys lose their tires or blow out 2 or 4 tires, they're stuck.
Yeah.
And
wait for the tow truck and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Joey Logano was not running well today at all. Yeah. And certainly was going to finish in the back. But 34th, 2 laps down because he spun out and had 4 flat tires is just unreal.
He only had 2 and he couldn't 2 flat tires.
He had
right?
4 flat.
I thought for sure his left sides were the flat ones and his right sides were still up.
I saw his right rear down at least. Like I knew that they said he had 2 flat fronts and I saw the right rear was soft. That so regardless, that's even worse if it's just 2.
I should say his I get my left and rights mixed up. His right sides were down, and I thought both left sides were up.
That could be then.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Maybe I'm incorrect on that. But either way, it's unreal that with 2 flat tires even that you're not able to go anywhere, and you have to get somebody to come push you. I hope that they didn't have the in-car camera on him with a microphone and talking to the tow truck driver again because he doesn't need any more bad publicity as far as that goes.
I'm sure he learned his lesson. Maybe
that's likely. He's probably thinking, "Boy, there's probably a hot mic in here, and I don't want to have such the issue that I had the last time, getting caught on microphone swearing at the guy that he's such an idiot to hook him up to a tow truck." But outside of stuff like that, I thought that it was a good next-gen car race. Really disappointed that Denny wasn't able to get the win. It seems so weird to actually say that sentence. Because I felt like he had the best car of the day. Was certainly the guy leading at the end. Let's talk about the end of the race a little bit. Because, well, before we even get there, when we got into the third stage, it seemed like we had cars that just kept wrecking. Yeah. Jimmy Johnson started the whole thing. He got run over going into turn 1.
Yeah, I would say more of the core of the joy started it. But
oh, I agree. Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But the Jimmy Johnson caution is what started it. He ended up getting turned by LaJoie, like you said. Very shortly after that, we had Cindric, who was on the outside of 3 or 4 wide. 4 wide.
I thought it was Logano and.
It was Logano, Bell, and I think Priest maybe.
Hamlin was there too.
Okay.
Hamlin's kind of the main one that squeezed him up into the wall. Logano squeezed into Hamlin. Hamlin squeezed into.
Okay, so
not to say it was any of their faults. It was
definitely.
Yeah.
The way that was going into the corner there, and the 2 bounced off the wall, and then bounced off the 23, I think.
Yeah.
And the 34 got caught up in that as well. Those guys all went spinning down the backstretch. That was the second caution. Ironically, I was surprised to see this. When we got down to 60 to go in the race, the 23 and the 34 were running 4th and 6th. So even though they got hooked, they were still running up near the front towards the end. I don't know exactly where they finished, though. It wasn't in those positions. After that wreck, you had Harrison Burton spin out. Same deal as Joey Logano did, which happened after Burton's spin. But he had flat tires, couldn't go anywhere, had to get pushed back or towed back or whatever. Man, do you feel like Harrison Burton... Those cars are not good right now. Ford in general has not been good as a whole. Beuscher had an outstanding day, and Noah Gragson had an outstanding day. And Brad Keselowski was also fast at the end.
Yeah.
But that's really the only Fords that played a factor in this race. But even still, you feel like Harrison Burton's got to be done, right?
I would think so. I mean,
if Joey Logano had never proven anything and was in a contract year, I would say he'd be out of the 22 car with his performance. Yeah. Even though they're not having fast race cars every week. You know the 21 car is not fast at all any of these weeks, and it feels like Harrison's making it worse. And it's a shame because he's a very likable guy, but I don't see him staying in that 21 car.
No.
Okay, now that we got the cautions there towards the end of the race out of the way, we had a situation where the leaders were trying to save fuel because they weren't 100% sure they could make it to the end. Denny Hamlin was one of them. In fact, his driving style in general at that racetrack seemed to be hurting him, the way that he'd use the throttle through the corner to get the car to turn.
Yeah.
His crew chief, Chris Beuscher, was telling him that we need to stop spiking the throttle in the middle of the corner and just roll in and out of it. I'm sure that wasn't helping him any. It looked like Martin Truex was going to make it a race. Yeah. He was coming, and there was nothing Denny Hamlin could do about it. From what I understand, Beuscher said that if they had to go right then when Truex would have got Hamlin, that he would have ran out off of turn 4, out of fuel on the last lap. So hard to say that he would have actually been able to beat Truex.
Yeah.
But I think that with the way that the air is manipulated, he would have been able to at least stay in front of him until he ran out of fuel.
Hamlin said on his podcast he thought he was good to go on fuel. So
Denny doesn't know. I put a lot of stock in some of the things Denny Hamlin says on that podcast. It's very entertaining. It's very interesting to listen to. He offers a lot of insight. I don't believe Denny Hamlin had any idea if he was going to make it on fuel or not. You will never convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
I do know one thing. Denny does not like vegetables. Because as they're trying to save fuel with 7 laps to go, Kyle Busch spun out. I think he was running 5th. Spins out all by himself, only to get a Chevy to win the race. I'm firmly sold on that theory. Definitely not true. But Gabehart comes on the radio to Hamlin and said, looks like the call is going to be vegetables. And you just hear, vegetables. Don't think Denny's a fan of Brussels sprouts. That call meant 2 tires, and it meant that for, who was it, about 8 cars? Or was there more than that took 2 tires to get their track position?
I don't think it was really much any more than that. So
I would say it was probably about 8 cars. I don't have a list of who all it was, but that put some odds and end guys up there. Larson was out of tires before that caution with Kyle Busch.
He had one uncording or whatever.
Yeah, he was unraveling a tire. So he wasn't even going to be a factor. And like we said, Truex was going to have the ability to catch Hamlin. But that was the race. Like, that was it. Those were the only 2 that were going to play a factor in the win. And then after the caution and the guys get tires, now they restart. You had, was it Hamlin and Buescher were on the front row, correct? Yeah. Okay. Do we know why Denny Hamlin chose the bottom lane?
He said it on his podcast that he thought Larson would start on the high side. And I think on new tires, I know they only had right sides, but a lot of times on the restarts, you could run that bottom with that grip of the new tire. So I think there was something to do with that. But when Larson lined up behind him, he knew Larson would at that moment, he's like, he wished he'd taken the outside. Because he knew Larson would take it 3 wide if he was on the inside. And
Denny said as much on the post-race interview that he knew that Larson was going to hang him out as soon as he had the opportunity because he's going to try to go for the win of the race, obviously. Yeah. But I feel like even if, no matter what, if Denny was on the outside, you have your momentum. And even if Larson did line up behind him on the outside, where's he going to go? He can't jump to the inside going into 1 if he lines up on the outside.
Yeah.
And if he's on the inside, so what? You're in the top lane. Yeah. I feel like that was just a bonehead move by him to not pick the top.
Yeah. Well, looking back, hindsight 2020.
But even in the 100%. But even in the moment, I'm like, what's he doing? Buescher's going to squeeze you down. Again, air is a big factor.
Yeah.
And Buescher never even got the chance to squeeze him down because Larson already took the inside. It just seemed like, as soon as they're lining up for that, I'm thinking, what is he doing? Like, why would you take the inside in that one? In fact, I had to make sure that Buescher didn't beat him off pit road because I thought he had to have been the leader in order to take the top. I don't know. I do a podcast that do not drive race cars and don't make any calls on top of a pit box. It seems insane to me that was the decision that was made. And like you said, hindsight is 2020, but even foresight was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then obviously as they restart, like you said, Larson jumped to the inside. Denny just went backwards. He might as well dropped an anchor.
Yeah.
And Truex came up through there. Elliott came up through there. Larson was right there behind Beuscher, and I thought, man, Larson's gonna get him. And then when they took the white, and Beuscher came off at turn 4 and drove it down to the inside of the racetrack, and Larson was trying to follow in his tire tracks. I'm like, Beuscher might get this.
Yeah.
And I immediately flipped from making my garage area pick to be correct with Denny Hamlin. I was like, go Chris Beuscher. I want to see a Ford win. I'm a Ford guy. I want to see that 17 car back in victory lane. And they went through 1 and 2. He took the bottom. And I'm like, okay, he might have an opportunity here to just stay in front of them. When they went into 3, I was immediately like, Chris Beuscher, what are you doing? Like, you either have to run the bottom where you feel your car is good, or you got a block in the top lane. Running the middle did absolutely nothing for you. And I don't know why he thought that was a good idea. And I don't know. I don't have a good answer. As soon as Larson got to his outside in 3 and 4, I was like, this race is done. Yeah. And to my surprise, Beuscher still stood a fighting chance after that particular move there. But as they went through 3 and 4, I'm thinking this is Larson's race at this point. He's going to get the run off the top. He's going to beat him back to the line. And Kyle Busch did it. He got a Chevy in victory lane.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to put each other into the wall, and Chase was going to come below him because he was on the low side of Martin Truex Jr. behind him. So
well, when they were in the center of 3 and 4, I thought Beuscher might end up putting him in the wall, but I never really. The camera shot was tight enough that I wasn't even thinking about them 2 cars behind him.
Well, as a Chase fan, I was watching his point of view, so
obviously
that's probably why I know that. But,
yeah. When they came off of turn 4, I want to get your take on this. When they got off, I think that Beuscher certainly. I don't know if he squeezed Larson into the wall or not. I don't know if Larson hit the wall.
I don't think he did.
So he obviously put as little a gap as he could between his car and Larson's. And then they drove off 4, and he tries to dive it to the inside. Larson hit him in the door twice.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was what happened there? Like, is he intentionally trying to door slam him to slow him down?
I think so. Yeah.
That just seems like an out of character move by Kyle Larson to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if Beuscher put him in the wall, I feel like that's fair game, 100%. But if Beuscher didn't put him in the wall, I feel like you got to try to take his air off his door and side draft him as hard as you can coming to the start finish line. But door slamming him just seems a little extra to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and really look at it now to see it. But
I watched it probably 3 times, and all 3 times that was the impression that I got. But again, I'm looking at it from a point of view of hoping Chris Beuscher wins this race.
Yeah.
And when they came back to the line, I thought for sure Larson had it. And I had no clue how close it was. It just seemed like with the door slamming and the forward momentum that Larson had, by the time they got to the line, I went, yep, that's Larson. And then they showed Beuscher on the scoring pylon, and his team was celebrating, and I'm like, wow, I must have missed it. Like, they must have got it. Awesome, great, that's cool. I'm glad Beuscher got it. And I'm sitting there thinking, it just kind of felt weird. Like, give me the official word from NASCAR, because Clint and Harvick in the booth were like, I don't know, it might be Larson. And
I was sitting there like what happened at Atlanta. We're just waiting for official word because I know at Atlanta they gave the officials radio and they said race is under review, and I didn't hear that this time or whatever. But I'm like just waiting, just make sure.
What did you feel when they came to the line? Did you think Beuscher won, or do you think?
I thought Beuscher was there first.
Oh, okay.
But they talked about the crooked line. I think maybe because that went on the apron, it looks like the line's a little bit wider there. So I don't know if that caught my eye or what. But I did think Beuscher was there. But
let's talk about that for a second. The conspiracy theory that I threw out there, to me, is just as ridiculous as this one. But people are saying that the start-finish line is painted and it's really crooked. And look, I get that.
Yeah.
But were you under the impression that that's how they judged it? Was the first nose to the white line?
That was kind of my impression, yeah.
See, I always figured that there was something electronic that scored that.
I know they had a camera, but I always thought. See, the thing is, evidently the timing line is before the start-finish line.
Yeah.
Now, Denny said the transponders that click the scoring are in the rear of the cars. So that timing line ticked before the cars got to the start-finish line. So that's why the scoring showed Beuscher winning the race.
Right.
Now, my assumption was that I know they always had a camera on the line that they would look at that, and after they showed the replay, I could see Larson hitting the line before Beuscher, even on with that wider line or whatever. But I didn't know the camera itself had a line in it itself. That was kind of what I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that's how it worked, but I was
Yeah.
sure that it was some sort of electronic feature that either it broke a laser line or something that the first car to the line snapped the picture or whatever it was in order to make the difference up there. So I don't know. Like, I never thought it was the first car to the paint. Like, that was never my impression. I always figured there was something a little more sophisticated that actually scored race winners. So that wasn't even an issue to me at all. And I never once, even after seeing it on TV, I never thought that it was anybody other than Larson that won that race.
Yeah.
So
I always assumed the timing line was right at the start finish line. So
I agree. Yeah, I thought so too. This race is gonna get this race is gonna go down in history. It just is. It's the closest finish in NASCAR history.
Now they called it a 1,000th of a second win, but I don't think that's the actual time, because obviously if the scoring line was before the start finish line, as far as I can tell, all they had was a picture in the moment. So, like, Denny and other guys had their own scoring monitor and stuff. Denny even said when Larson crew member said 000 instead of 001, and Denny said when he got back to his haul or bus or whatever that his scoring monitor said 000. So I don't know if they rounded it up to be 001 or not, but I think it may have been even closer than that.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, it probably goes to the 10,000th of a second, for sure. But regardless, it's certainly one of the closest. Definitely, I think it is the closest. Finish in history. As far as, like you said, the actual margin, hard to say. The thing that I think is just a little bit interesting with all this, and as great of a race as people are talking about it, and as much emotion as we saw out of Kyle Larson, which we don't normally see, I thought he was very animated, especially after he got the official word. Pumping the crowd up and whatnot. Kyle Larson still won the race. Like, another Hendrick car won. It's been Hendrick and Gibbs all year. And that's the storyline to me. You still can't pass, and Larson, another Hendrick car, won the race. Like, I don't know. It's certainly a great race by today's NASCAR standards, but the storyline of the year doesn't change, in my opinion. No. It's nothing different than what we've seen so far at all. Anything else from Kansas that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I know we talked about Kyle Busch spinning out with, what was there, 7 to go, we said?
Yeah.
He still finished 8th.
Yeah.
He restarted 20th and drove up to 8th place.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw his in-car camera or not.
I did not see the in-car camera.
It was like video game driving up through the field in the last couple laps. But
nobody but Rowdy.
Yeah.
Bell started on the pole, finished 6th. Alex Bowman quietly started 18th and finished 7th. That was a good day for him. Like you said, Kyle finished 8th. Noah Gragson finished 9th. McDowell finished 10th. Good deal for him. Brad Keselowski, when Truex was running down Denny, they still said that Brad was the fastest car on the racetrack. And he ended up finishing 11th, but I do believe he was one of the cars that took 4 tires on that final stop. John Hunter Nemechek finished 13th. Good finish for him. Todd Gilliland 14th. Josh Berry 15th. Stenhouse 16th. Justin Haley 18th place finish. Ross Chastain ended up being 19th and Reddick 20th at all that. You know, I've never been so disappointed to win the picks this week because I really thought that Hamlin had a shot at winning, and we could put another tick in the win column for the garage area. Anything else?
That's it.
I am looking forward to Darlington. It's one of my favorite racetracks on the schedule now because, why do you think that is, Ryan?
Tire wear?
It is tire. It's a big tire wear track, and a lot less aero is a factor at Darlington. So I'm looking forward to those two things being a key component. If they just put a bigger motor in the car, it'd be perfect. So we're going to probably not look for that, but look for some great racing in Darlington this upcoming weekend. I'm excited about it, and then it's going to be on to the All-Star break from there. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the Garage Area. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys after Darlington.